Hello, welcome or welcome back to me. This video is going to be my little review of Season 7 of Drive to Survive. I made a bingo card and I've dutifully ticked it off during my watch, and I've also taken a bunch of notes. To preface this, I'm not going to show you any footage because I don't know how to, and also if you want to watch it, it's on Netflix. You can, you cannot. You can find all the memes on Instagram or Tumblr or Reddit if you've watched it. Definitely let me know what you thought. So this video is going to be first a brief summary of what we saw in this season. Then I'll talk a little bit about what we didn't see and maybe should have seen. And then I'll talk about what I liked and disliked and just some general observations that I neither liked nor didn't like. And I have some memorable moments from the season that I thought were worth mentioning. This obviously contains spoilers for the 2024 season / season 7 of Drive to Survive, but I think that comes with the territory. Also, it's a documentary series, so how many spoilers can there be? But I guess proceed with caution. So yeah, let's go. If you don't know, I'm kind of questioning why you're here, but welcome. Anyway, Drive to Survive is a documentary series made by Netflix about Formula One. Each season of the series follows one season of racing, with season 7, the most recent season, coming out 2 weeks ago, being about the 2024 Formula One season. There were 10 episodes in this season, but I think they usually are. They were 37 to 49 minutes long. I'll just quickly go through what each episode was about. It was fairly straightforward to summarize, just as an overview, or in case you care just about a specific thing and you just want to watch that, I guess this might be helpful. So episode 1 was about preseason drama, mostly about Lewis Hamilton's move to Ferrari. That happened at the end of the season, so a couple months ago. And also about the Horner situation and a little bit about Carlos. The second one was about Lando versus Max. The third one was Lewis's move to Ferrari and more so who's going to replace him at Mercedes. The fourth one was where's Carlos going? The fifth one was just Charles's Monaco win, really. The sixth one was more McLaren. I didn't take many notes on this episode for some reason, so that's what I could tell from my notes. The seventh one was Netflix giving a couple of drivers, including George Russell, Lando Norris, Alex Albon, Charles Leclerc. I may have forgotten someone. No, for bad. Giving a couple drivers phones to film, well, their day-to-day during the Singapore Grand Prix with, so it was mostly about that. That was actually kind of nice. It felt a little lazy, but I don't think they've done something like this before, so that was interesting, but we'll get to that. Maybe. The eighth one was who replaces Perez in the second Red Bull seat alongside Verstappen. The ninth episode was Haas versus Alpine for the 6th place in the Constructors' Championship. And then the 10th one was the end of the season with the results of the World Drivers' Championship and the World Constructors' Championship. My English is not Englishing today, I apologize. Overall, I would say like the major storylines, so to speak, were Lewis's move to Ferrari, which was more of a through line than like something that was made the topic of like a whole episode or two. Also, Carlos popped up a lot, and then Lando versus Max, which had like the dedicated episode, but I think also popped up in other places again. And just McLaren, it felt quite McLaren focused. Maybe that was just me. I don't know. Right. So that's what we saw. What we didn't see, I think, is also very interesting to look at. The first thing that I found very noticeable was the lack of mention of Max Verstappen, which makes sense because he famously dislikes Netflix and Drive to Survive. There was no interview with him. I think there were other drivers that weren't interviewed, but none of them were World Drivers' Champion that season or the previous seasons. So that was very noticeable. I'm not saying that Netflix were the ones to not offer the interview. I could easily imagine Max just saying, no, fuck you, which don't know that I blame him for that. The last episode was kind of the only one where we really saw him drive, at least. And I really thought they weren't going to mention his Interlagos drive. I don't think they could have gotten away with that because I think everybody would have been really mad. Because I think you can frame in like more conspicuous ways. Inconspicuous ways? I don't know which one it is. You can frame more subtly, but to completely omit really good work, I think people would have gotten mad. They might still be mad, the same amount, I don't know. There was also very little Sauber, except for related to Carlos's move to Williams. That episode had other teams involved as well because it was like, is he going to go to Williams? Is he going to go somewhere else? So Sauber was in there, but I don't think much at all in the other episodes. In the Mercedes episode, they showed George Russell driving really well in Spa and then omitted that he got disqualified. Interesting. There was also no mention of the George and Max beef from the end of the last season. There was also no mention of the swearing ban or anything negative towards the FIA that I can think of, which obviously makes sense, but it's still worth mentioning, I would say. Yeah. And there's also barely any mention of Aston Martin, like at all. I think at one point we saw Lawrence Stroll. We may have seen a shot of Alonso by accident. Did Aston Martin partake in the last season? You wouldn't know based on watching Drive to Survive, is all I'm saying. Those were all the things that we saw and didn't see, which leads me to my trusty bingo card. I have it here. I'll show you here a quick compilation of all the pictures I took throughout watching it and what the status was at the end of each episode. And here's what it looks like at the end of the season. As you can see, I filled a lot of boxes and I did not get a bingo. That's just a skill issue. I should have sorted it differently. I was a little optimistic with some of these. If they had mentioned the new move, I would have gotten 2 bingos. I'm slightly salty about it. I was the most surprised about Ocon Gasly beef, like not being a thing at all. I was so sure Netflix was going to dramatize the shit out of it. There was also not much hype about Behrman's great work for Ferrari and more so just, lack of hype for his results with Haas towards the end of the season. I would have been happy for him getting more credit. I think they were more focused on like the appendicitis of it all, which I mean, fair, but still. Also the fact that they didn't do the adoption joke when they did the whole episode about Charles and Monaco. I missed the whole little Twitter whistle, even though it's X now and we don't use it, but I kind of missed that, the little Twitter whistle. And then just seeing the adoption joke would have been funny. Can't get everything I want. And apparently bingo is one of those things. On to the things I liked and didn't like. Let's start positive. Let's do a little constructive sandwich. Start with something good, say something negative, say something good again. Can't say I didn't learn anything in school. I really liked the behind the scenes stuff. I really enjoy seeing what the drivers get up to behind the scenes, like the interactions. I think that's fun. I do really enjoy that. On to the negative. This is in no particular order, by the way. I didn't like that they vilified Max a lot. They made it look like he was beefing with Lando during his Miami win when you can see the podium celebrations and how he was celebrating Lando. Okay. And I feel like they gave him like the bare minimum credit. As I said, like the Interlagos drive, it just felt like they kind of had to, and that's why they did it, but not much else. And again, until like episode 10 happened, I thought there was going to be no mention of it. They showed Max a little bit when like Liam was doing test drives for Red Bull, I think, very briefly. And vast majority of the framing was negative, which again, it makes sense a little that Netflix is doing that. It's easy, I'm sure, when the person doesn't actually sit down in an interview and give you the time of day. Potentially. Again, I don't know that. But yeah, it wasn't necessary, I don't think, but okay. I had to see George's toes. I had to see Flavio Briatore. Both of those I could have done without. I got a little annoyed once I noticed the pattern of, and maybe I'm very late to the party with this, but the pattern of them clearly setting up the friend or often also female partner of a driver or team principal to ask them interview questions. To me, it read as really inauthentic because those are like supposed to be behind the scenes moments. I mean, I know that they're staged anyway, but like try to make them as authentic as possible. I'm sure they set dress the shit out of all of those, but then at least let them have natural-ish conversations. I don't know, like it kind of annoyed me because like then you're asking these random people's family members to act that they're an interviewer. Like that's how it read to me. Also the fact obviously that there's so few women in the sport, the fact that most of the women we heard talk was them asking their partners questions was just kind of like even Susie Wolf. Come on. Also, justice for Bottas and Joe. We barely saw any of them, and they were so sweet. They're like interactions. Did they have a shit car last year? Probably, yeah. Did they get a lot of points? No. I still like them a lot, and I would have liked to see them more. I think that would have been nice. I don't actually remember if they gave any credit for like Joe getting points that one time and like, driver of the day and like that whole celebration. I think there might have been a mention, but like it can't have been more than a minute, so does it count? And 10 was something positive. Netflix 8. When they called the Charles Leclerc Monaco episode about Charles's curse and not being able to win Monaco, calling that Le Curse of Leclerc. Great work. No notes. I also have some value-free observations. I thought the drama was going to come from the drivers. I thought Sainz was going to be upset. I thought Tsunoda's going to get pissed off, like all of these things. Turns out the drama's in the team principals. How silly of me not to know. Especially because multiple times with multiple different constellations of drivers and team principals, they framed the relationship between drivers and team principals like romances. They did it with Toto and Lewis multiple times. They did it with Vowles and Sainz the most explicitly, where Vowles literally called it like saying it's like dating when you sign a driver. They also did it with Verstappen and Leclerc, where they were saying like, oh, they reunited at Ferrari or something like that, which I don't know, like it just, it's nothing big. I just find it really funny to observe. Like once I noticed that, I was like, this is really romantic. And at one point it was also kind of horny, which was very weird. I don't remember the situation, but maybe it's for the best. It also really felt like in this season, whoever was against Lando was being framed as a villain at least a little bit, obviously mostly with Max, but it also kind of felt like they were going with that angle for Oscar for a little bit, which I guessed, but it didn't feel like extreme enough that I crossed it off the bingo, but it really felt like that was kind of what they were going for a little bit there, which also supports my point that I think Netflix really loves Carlos and Lando. Those were like the people that were looked at the most kindly in this season, and also the most. And then there was just a random continuity error with Charles's hair. They literally show him get a haircut from his mum in his apartment leading up to the race weekend. But then I'm pretty sure, I didn't compare pictures or anything like that, but I'm pretty sure later on in what's supposed to be later on in the weekend, they show him and he has like the slightly longer hair in the back again. And I was like, I completely understand that they probably pre-filmed the bits where it's like supposed to be after qualifying, I think, like Saturday evening, that they probably didn't actually film that on that day, because if I was Charles Leclerc before Monaco, I would not do that. So they probably filmed it early in the week or something, but I found it really funny. Again, maybe I just imagined it, but I think it was a continuity error, which I found very amusing. Okay, and last, I have some memorable moments to share. I'll read those off my trusty notes, because trying to commit these to memory is just not going to happen. I really enjoyed that there was an instance where like a Haas staff member in the factory questioned the team principal. Decent chance that was staged. I still liked it. I still liked the idea that the employees feel comfortable to do that. There was Max saying, get the fire extinguisher ready for, I think it was Australia, when his brakes caught on fire. And I just thought that was a really funny thing to say on the radio before you come into the pits with your brakes on fire. There was Lando sitting in his car being asked, I guess, what he thought about the fact that Zach Brown said that they had the best driver lineup, where Lando just said, don't know what he's smoking. That's funny. There was just a random moment in Miami with Max climbing out of the boot of a car. I don't know if they transported him in it. Even funnier if they did like a Taylor Swift thing. There was Valtteri just saying box, and then it cuts to seeing him driving his car with the front right tire at a 45-ish degree angle to the other tire. That was also very funny. There was also Alex Albon during the aptly named Le Curse of Leclerc episode saying he offered Charles to talk to a monk for him. And also Alex talking about George spending, saying he's still pretty tight. We had Ollie's engineers saying, you're doing a good job, Ollie, and Ollie responding, no, but I'm trying not to die. And we had George saying, I'm like a boat. I might have been into Lagos. So yeah, those were my fun moments that I enjoyed. I'm sure there were other ones, but those are the ones I took notes on. Again, I'm not trying to encourage you or discourage you from watching it. Do what you want. I think overall, it was really fun season. There was lots of material, I'm sure. I could have done with less off-track drama, especially the stuff that wasn't actually that dramatic, like the Lando Max beef and stuff like that. Like, cool it a little, please. I understand you want it to be interesting, but like, it's a cool sport. It's interesting. Like, it's dramatic. You can get easily injured. Like, isn't that dramatic enough? Why do we need to like have friends beefing in there as well? I don't know. I think a bit more on-track action would be nice. I feel like we didn't see that much racing, considering it's about a motorsport. As I said, I do enjoy seeing the behind-the-scenes stuff, only to the extent that the drivers feel comfortable with it. I just would want it to be less staged. Again, like the disguised interviews I find kind of uncomfortable. I enjoyed the like actually spontaneous bits. There was one bit where Lando in his flat was like hurriedly putting away his like presumably ex-girlfriends or ex-situationships shampoo and shower gel or whatever from a shower. That was funny. Like him just really quickly grabbing those and like shoving them somewhere. That was like spontaneous, candid. If it was staged, at least it was well done, which I don't think I can say about a lot of the other staged moments. Just more of the real interactions, please. So yeah, those are all of my thoughts on Drive to Survive Season 7. I hope you enjoyed. Again, let me know if you agree, disagree with my takes. If you watched Drive to Survive, well, Season 7, let me know what your thoughts were. And if you didn't, I mean, still let me know your thoughts. And yeah, I'll see you soon for some actual racing. Bye bye.